With us to talk about this is Catarina Thomson of the University of Exeter, where she's a senior lecturer in security and strategic studies. Thank you so much for joining us this cloudy morning. Let's begin then by talking about President Biden and Prime Minister Boris Johnson. What do you make of their political styles? Do you see areas where they might be aligned and areas where they're likely to be more of a clash?
Well, in terms of leadership styles, they're quite different, right? Joe Biden is known for reaching across the aisle and wanting consensus. Whereas Boris Johnson, let's not forget that very recently there was the so-called purge, the Remainer purge in 2019, where members of the Tory party, including Churchill's grandson, were expelled from the Conservative Party for voting against a no-deal Brexit, right? So he's had a really hard party line in that regard. So yes, it's interesting to see how those different styles will come into place today, especially knowing that it's very important for the UK in context of global Britain to have those closer ties with the US, the so-called special relationship.
A term apparently which annoys the Prime Minister, so he's trying to eschew that and call it other things. But global Britain is an important point to make, because here we are, Britain's left the European Union. What image does Boris Johnson want to project to the world, and specifically to President Biden, about what the UK stands for now, where its new partnerships will be, which direction it will be looking in globally for the future of its strategic partnerships, economic partnerships?
Well, I think one mistake people make when they talk about Brexit, and not just Brexit as a concept, but people who voted in favor of Brexit, is this idea that people voted because they don't want the UK to be on the world stage, right? So what I find in my research is that actually people who voted to leave want the UK to continue to have a very active international role. The difference is they want the UK to do that more unilaterally instead of multilaterally, right? So we can debate for a really long time whether the referendum was the right way to go about this pivotal decision in the UK's history, right? This is a momentous thing that's happening, right? Whatever you voted, it's a big change. But on one level, it was a really simple question, right? Do you want the UK to continue to work in this multilateral institution that is the EU, or do you want the UK to work unilaterally, right? So that's an important difference, and I think Johnson is quite keen on this idea of global Britain, and here we are in the global stage. And he's also been changing how the UK works domestically, right? This integrated review we just had, right? So he's really keen on bringing different areas of foreign policy that had previously been in separate departments together, right? We have the foreign aid department has been subsumed, or joined, I should say, with the Foreign Commonwealth Office, and trade is becoming more integrated in that also. So I think this is also part of this idea of global Britain. It has these important reforms that are taking place internally. And
in direct contrast to President Donald Trump, Joe Biden has intervened in the Brexit discussion between the UK and Europe, and he clearly sees it as a real difficulty when it comes to preserving peace on the island of Ireland. In fact, all commentators do. But the fact that he feels the need to get involved, because that's a very important issue to him for numerous reasons. How difficult do you think that's going to make things for Boris Johnson?
It's a really strange thing that's happened, because historically, part of the special relationship was the UK was the bridge between Europe, or the EU, and the US, and now we find ourselves in this bizarre situation where the US is trying to bridge the UK and Europe. So yes, I hope so. We're in a very difficult situation. Brexit was done, right? But all the fine print, which is actually absolutely essential to maintaining the union, hasn't really been worked out. So I hope they can find a way to solve this very difficult problem.
It is a very interesting role reversal that you mentioned. Catarina Thomson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Great.